Okay. So hello everybody and welcome to our latest webinar. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today, and obviously there will be a lot of people watching it on replay. This is a discussion, so please do put your questions into the chat and we'll try and get through as many as possible. So firstly, can I introduce and thank my guests for joining me today. So firstly, we have Aisling Connaughton, who's a sustainability expert, amongst other things, and a B Corp consultant. And Aisling is currently taking many well-known brands through their B Corp accreditation, hopefully us in the near future, Aisling. And her own business is B Corp. So Aisling, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're delighted to have you. And next we have Ed Murphy. For anyone who hasn't heard or seen Ed, he's a very well-known with a brilliant story. I would encourage anyone to check him out on a podcast. He founded Green Tech HQ, which is an innovation hub down in Wexford, or Sustainability Southeast, as I believe they're calling the general region. Ed is doing some amazing work with clients in the sustainability sector. So Ed, thank you so much for being here today.
Delighted to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. So as I said, we do have a chat facility, so please put your questions into the chat. So today, we're going to be talking about B Corporation, how important it is for your business, the who, the what, the where, the why, and how it can help enhance your reputation and attract top talent. And I think Ed is going to cover a bit at the end about the investment opportunities and the grants available. So the first segment is, I suppose, a demystification for anyone who isn't familiar. Aisling, I think you're going to handle this one. What is a B Corporation and how important is it for your business?
So B Corp, here is the logo. If you haven't seen it, you will soon. So it's one of the fastest growing ESG, environmental, social and governance frameworks. And there's now nearly 9,000 globally. But I always like to look behind, like how things started. And it actually started in the States, because in America, the fiduciary duty of a CEO is to make as much money as possible for its shareholders. So the purpose of a business is to make as much money as possible for its shareholders. If the CEO isn't doing that, they can in effect be sent to prison because they're breaking the law. And so in America, there was this kind of rise where it was like, well, this is crazy. You had businesses like Patagonia, Ben & Jerry's, who were like, actually, we want to have businesses that are doing good for people and planet, as well as making money. And so in the US, it started as a legal change from a C corporation to a benefit corporation, which means that you legally have to report on the triple bottom line: people, planet, and profit. And then it just started growing. And it's just grown all over the world. So it's a global framework. The UK is currently the fastest growing market with over 2,000 B Corps. And Ireland has just, at the end of last year, set up its own HQ here in Ireland. And so it's growing very, very rapidly as well.
Brilliant. God, I know. And I think at the event, Aisling and I were at a B Corp event down in Cork last week. And it was just very inspirational to hear all about the growth. And Aisling, if I can stick with you for a second, what types of companies and organizations need to be B Corp? Like, who are the pioneers, and why would somebody aim for certification?
So the challenge with sustainability, right, is that there's loads of different frameworks you can use. So it's very easy to measure your money. So we can all convert our money to a euro or a US dollar, and we know the size of our business. It's far more challenging to measure your environmental and your societal impact. Everyone is working to different frameworks. If you're smaller businesses, people don't really want to know unless you're turning over more than 5 million. They're often quite sector specific. So if you're in construction, it's very different to a beauty industry. So it's a bit of a minefield and a kind of expensive time and money minefield. And so what B Corp did was they were like, actually, we're going to say it doesn't matter what business you're in, as long as you're a for-profit business, so it's not for charities, as long as you're for-profit, and it doesn't matter your sector, it doesn't matter if you're a one-man band, a sole trader, a woman who set up a business on her own, or if you're a huge listed company like Patagonia, we're going to put you on a point system. And we're going to put you on a point system across all of these impact areas, which are your stakeholders. And then if you get to over 80 points, then you can B Corp certify. And then the idea is that you become part of this club where you all shop and buy from each other. So we B Corped my business when I was doing my master's in sustainability in 2019. There was 2 of us. So we, a tiny business, we weren't making any money, but we wanted kind of guidance on how to walk the talk and work sustainability into our business from day one. So again, it's any size of business. It doesn't matter if you're tiny or if you're a listed company trying to get your house in order and follow policy, you can really kind of kick off with this assessment. So it's a very inclusive framework.
That's great to know, and especially because I know some of the people joining us are from obviously the larger brands, but for the smaller business owner or the founder, it's good to know that it's something they should aim for too. And Ed, if I can come to yourself, how do you think B Corp certification can enhance the credibility and visibility of startups, small businesses operating in the green tech, clean tech sector, both locally and globally?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I think its time has come. B Corp certification has come, and absolutely enhances the credibility of a business by, first of all, it's independent verification that a company meets social and environmental performance and accountability and transparency. It also signals to consumers, to customers, to investors, and all other stakeholders that the business is very genuine, and it's very genuine and is committed to positive social and environmental impact. And thus, like Ashlyn's business or any small business, it's a real good way to differentiate yourself, particularly at this stage from your competitors. And I think it's a great time, and actually even better, the smaller you are, the better you are, to get into. It'll be much easier to get the certification when you have less functions, less people going on in the organization. So to get in early, and the nice thing about doing it is, potential customer stakeholders or investors will see you as less risk. They see you as having the systems, the structures, the policies, the procedures in place. So you're less risk to deal with. And so it's fantastic, I think, for someone to get stuck in and get started early in the process to differentiate themselves. You mentioned the green tech area, Ellie. In terms of green tech, I mean, green tech or green technology sector, effectively that encompasses industries and companies that are developing technologies to reduce environmental impact and in general are promoting sustainability. It includes every renewable energy companies, whether it's solar or wind or hydro. Includes energy efficiency type companies, waste management type companies, water purification, the circular economy, all of that. So that's the whole green tech / climate tech area. And we do find, and hence I set up Green Tech HQ, a place for green tech companies. In some of the countries like Denmark, 3 out of 4 new jobs are in green tech. So we will see this happen hugely over the next 10 years or so. So hence we started Green Tech HQ, and it's fantastic to have started and hopefully be an enabler, a facilitator of many companies in the Southeast and in Ireland to go into the sector.
Yeah, and it's I've been to a couple of the events down there, and like it's just amazing the passion in the room for this area. It's not tokenism anymore. There's real passion there.
No, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
there is. And the next thing I'd like to talk about is how being a B Corp company will enhance your reputation and attract top talent. Obviously, talent being our own area of interest here. So I suppose from my perspective and Talent Hub's perspective, we're we've seen, we actually did, and it's part of the takeaways that everyone will receive who registered for this event. We commissioned a piece of research recently which showed you by the different generations, boomers, Gen X, millennials and Gen Z, etc. What their priority and what they look for when because at the end of the day, as we all know, they're almost interviewing ye as employers rather than it just being the other way around. And I remember it doesn't feel like that long ago that having beer and pizza in the office and a ping pong table was a big deal. But then, of course, this pandemic came along, and that was kind of neither use nor ornament. And then work from home became, the normalization. And now I think the next bit we've moved on to is, well, okay, so we get that hybrid working is a given, but I want to work. The candidates now are saying to us when we do our discovery sessions with them, they're almost grilling us on, does this company's values and purpose align with my values and purpose? And I see it in my own kids. They're very savvy about, what products and what brands they approve of, and they certainly are quite vocal on what they don't approve of. So for future talent, for companies looking at how do I populate my org, 5-10 years down the line, they need to get on this journey, because it will be part of a candidate's selection criteria. And I don't know if you guys have found that. So Aisling, like from your perspective, what have you seen that could be brought into a recruitment or onboarding process that will make a company, a brand, more attractive to talent?
And it makes me think back to, I left Dublin in 2005 and got on the L'Oreal graduate program in London. Okay. And this was so exciting. Do you know what I mean? I was like, this is incredible. I'm so excited. I got my big first job in London. It's amazing. And people just don't want to apply in the same way that I did back then in 2005. It's a totally different world now, right? And this is where B Corp has been really, really smart, because it's taken sustainability frameworks that used to just sit in procurement or with the board, and in frameworks that people didn't really understand and would sit in a drawer that no one really read, or in some annual shareholder report. And what it's done is it's made it accessible. So the assessment itself is free. So I spend a lot of time lecturing now with students, and we actually bring up the assessment because the assessment is free, and students can start understanding what businesses do I want to work for? Like, so they're into diversity, equity, and inclusion, and they say they're into diversity, equity, and inclusion. Oh, hold on. Let me actually ask them how many women are on their leadership team. Yeah. And these are the kind of questions, right? So B Corp is saying this is what best practice looks like for a business. So when you go in for an interview, this is what the kind of questions you need to be asking and you need to be grilling. And this generation are absolutely doing it. They want to work for businesses that match their values, and they're also not afraid to leave. Do you know what I mean? I stayed in so many jobs that I was unhappy in, which I worked in the beauty industry for over a decade. It is absolutely rife with greenwashing. I often say I'm a reformed greenwasher, because that's how I ended up leaving that sector and retraining. The kind of famous example in the beauty industry is this product hasn't been tested on animals, yet all the ingredients in the supply chain will be tested on animals, and they'll mix it all together and say not tested on animals. And in my time, when you challenge that as an employee, you were just told to shut up, little girl. Yeah. That doesn't roll anymore. Yeah. Right? We have social media. You can't say to an intern, no, it's fine. You need to just be quiet on that. They're going to say, no, I'm not going to work for a business that's greenwashing. And not only that, I'm going to go on social media and tell everyone. So times are really changing. So I think people want to work for businesses that match their values. And I think B Corp is an absolutely step in the right direction for that.
And would you see the same, Ed, with all your clients, your members?
It's really happening at the moment. There's no question about it. Even anyone coming into the office now, they're checking everything from single-use plastics to paper cups to where the food is coming from. It's just unbelievable. I've got challenged a few times. You're saying this, but you know what? I'm not sure about how you're doing that or how you're doing the other. It's just unbelievable how you get challenged very quickly. And I'm I suppose putting myself out there as someone who's focused on sustainability, but now you're really getting challenged on it, and it's very interesting that so many young people are genuinely coming and wanting to make sure the company, and are prepared to work for less, if they could work
I
with
think
the
that's
right
the
company.
key.
They genuinely are.
Yeah.
I didn't think that might be the case, but they genuinely are. And I think not only that, I think they'll put in more effort, they'll organize more events, they'll get right behind the idea, either without being asked to do it. So I think we're really only seeing the start of this. Actually,
Yeah.
I know we're saying it, and I know we're seeing it, but literally we're just at the very start of it. I think the next 10 years will be so interesting in this regard. So interesting.
Yeah, and we're seeing here at Talent Hub, we're already seeing roles that didn't exist a few years ago, and I don't just mean from a technology enabler, like the technology making those changes. It's like, chief sustainability officer. That's going to be a C-suite role. That's going to be a normalized C-suite role in the very near future, and we're already seeing in the same way. It's was it May 2018 GDPR came in, and now every marketing role will have an aspect of must understand every job brief. You wouldn't even consider a marketer who didn't understand GDPR and the importance of compliance. And we're going to see that, I think, on more and more job descriptions for and more org charts, I think. So yeah, no, it's not going away, is it?
No, it certainly ain't.
And I think, Ellie,
here.
I think as well, like when I first started at L'Oreal, like sustainability it was just like print less on beside the printer.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's cutting down trees.
paperless office.
Yeah, that was kind of the depth of our sustainability strategy, really.
Yeah.
Like no one really understood. And it's been very kind of refreshing for me, I think, because when I went back and retrained, the majority of people I studied with now do sit beside the CEO. So they do sit in those C-suite roles, and it is that important. It is that important of a role. And they would say the main key strategy for them is obviously compliance, like you said. So the chief sustainability officer is making sure that you're complying with all the new policy, but also embedding sustainability into every single employee's job description, so that everyone becomes like a sustainability leader and understands how their role impacts the business and people and planet.
Yeah, and like we see it from, so I mean, I think for a good few years now, we've seen it with customers. Even getting back to what I said about the kids, like, customers, be they children or adults, are much more savvy about selecting, what products and what brands they'll buy based on that company's ethics. But now that's trickling down into the employees or potential employees, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's certainly only going in one direction, which is not a bad thing for the planet and certainly for the people. And Ed, can I just ask you a little bit about the legal and financial side of it? So, talk to us a bit about the grants that are available and the investment opportunities and the legal side of things.
Yeah. Well, just the important thing, we've been doing in Green Tech HQ, we've been doing ESG training, ESG, which stands for Environmental Social Governance. We've been doing that training for over the last year and a half. Apart from that, then we've moved on a little bit in that regard, and we've actually created a platform so that once we have a company come in and do ESG training, we literally give them a toolkit to go and start implementing the next morning. And I think that's very important, because an awful lot of companies looking here, you might give them evidence, they might find it out, they might do a course and whatever, but actually getting started, in a lot of companies, particularly SME companies, are finding it quite difficult. So it's really important to give a toolkit to actually get them started. So we've created that, and which is fantastic. And the other thing I think is very important of people that come on board in terms of any type of training, etc., is that you start to try and do training for all elements of the business. Too much probably that I've seen in the last few years, they suddenly get the head of compliance or the head of quality to do, let's send them on an ESG training course and let them be our ESG officer, and that's pretty well, or sustainability officer, and hand it over to them. That's really not good enough. It won't work. It actually won't work because they won't make it work in the company. Everyone needs to get on board. And look at that means you might only have to do a 2.5 hour module for everybody at the organization, but it's very important to do that. I just wanted to make that point first. Anyway, just regarding grants, I must say that the Irish government, in the form of, I suppose, the Enterprise Ireland, and even right down to the local enterprise office, have genuinely got on board here. And there's a number of different courses, programs, or whatever. From if it's small, you get a climate action voucher. There's a sustainability kickstart program. Enterprise Ireland and SkillNet Ireland have a sustainability leaders program, which is a really good program at the moment. There's Enterprise Ireland have enterprise emissions reductions program, and they also have Green for Business. So there's a lot of different programs, whether you're a 2-man organization or a 200-man organization. There's lots of different programs out there. Then you move to, SEAI, and they have, support schemes for renewable heat. You have Exceed certified programs. You have accelerated capital allowance programs, solar PV grants programs. So there is a lot of grants coming available from Enterprise Ireland, from SkillNet Ireland, from SEAI. So it's I genuinely think the government has come on board, and in terms of the different supports that are available. And the biggest problem they have, and I'm not lying about this, is getting bums on seats. And they're running free programs, free training, and whatever. And again, if I was an SME, I'd say just get up and go and be the first and take a leadership role and try and differentiate yourselves from your local competition.
That's really sorry.
I was also going to say, Ed, I'd like to build on that and say, lots of other governments aren't offering this support. And it is amazing that the Irish government is offering these supports, so that they won't be around forever. Do you know, that's the other thing. They're not going to be around forever, the grants. So it's about taking them while they're here and really running with them, because you will have an advantage for your business.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Thank you. I just want to ask one question that's come in from Danielle Devaney, who's joined us today. And Danielle asks, how do you recommend getting buy-in from the leadership team in your company when you're aiming for B Corp certification? So what do you guys recommend on that?
Yeah, I can kick this one off. So I think it really depends on who you're talking to in the leadership team. So in my experience, usually the CEO is the visionary and is all in, right? So the CEO is like the visionary. He's like, the purpose of our business is to like change the world and serve our customers. And it's usually quite easy to get their buy-in. The challenge often comes on the finance side, and spending the money behind it. Like B Corp is an investment, everyone. It is a time investment and it is a cost investment. The framework itself is free. So anyone can use the framework for free to track and measure. But if you want to certify, the certification fees are dependent on your turnover. So it depends on exactly, we've got them up here, how much you're turning over. So if you're a small business, it's £2,000 a year, €2,000 a year, and it goes right up to 50, dependent on your turnover. So it is an investment of time and money. And often the finance guy goes, not so sure about this, actually. Is it worth it? And so I think this is where the policy change, and the reason the Irish government is behind this is because there is new policy coming into effect. It's called the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. It means that businesses have to report on how they're affecting people and planet. And, it goes back to the fact that the climate crisis is the symptom of a broken economic system. So it's because we haven't figured out how to make money without exploiting people and planet. And we need to figure out how to make money by not doing that, by, regenerating and serving people and planet. And so businesses are going to say, I've made this much money, but how did I make that money? How did I affect the planet? And how did I affect people? And so if you're a business turning over more than 50 million from this year in 2024, you will have to comply with something called the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. If you don't, you will get fined. We don't know what the fines are going to be yet. It's still a bit grey, but it looks like they're going to be aligned with GDPR and the fining that comes out of there. So from the leadership team perspective, the finance guy, it's either do it or get fined now. You're going to have to have some kind of sustainability reporting in place. They think that by 2027, it will be any business turning over more than 8 million.
Right. Okay. So
yeah, and just to add to that, Ellie, I think Aislinn's 100% correct, and I certainly would be going to the absolute top with this, because this is a long-term deal. This is not a short-term financial deal. The other reason probably you need to go to the top, to the CEO, is that it's usually going to be, whether it's the accounting people, the operations, the production team, that are going to be the ones doing all the work. So they may not look forward to the resources and the work, that the extra work that they have to do. Therefore, it will take a leadership role, and it'll take a CEO who will need to do this. And it's very interesting, in a number of public companies at the moment, the people who are actually pushing B Corp are actually the investment team at the head of that company, because they're seeing investors coming in, and they're seeing investors want to see companies who are on board on this. And so it's actually, it's the investment team and the public companies are the ones pushing the agenda at the moment. So it's really the visionaries that you need to apply to and get to at this stage.
And if I could just build on that, Ed, as well, I absolutely agree, because that is the biggest shift I've seen in the last 5 years. So I would say when I first went all in sustainability full on, I was working with businesses that were funding, they were fundraising, and they nearly wouldn't put their sustainability creds front and center because they were worried it was going to impact their investment. And that they'd be saying, the investors would be like, oh, you're kind of too in the sustainability world, we're more about making money. Since the pandemic, that has done a total 360. We now predominantly work with private equity and VCs and plug into their due diligence, because they will not invest in businesses that do not have their sustainability strategy sorted, because it means their business is not future-proofed. So it's about protecting their investment. And that's a total shift in the last 5 years.
I totally agree.
And last week at the event that Aisling and I attended, actually, there was a very good example given by a well-known sort of FMCG brand, and they were talking about is it BNP Paribas, or the biggest bank in France, and how the interest when they're lending in the millions and sometimes in the billions, the interest rate was depending on how far on your B Corp journey. So there was actually a financial incentive. So in the same way, companies, so apart from the grants and the resources available to help fund this journey, there's actually a financial incentive. So in the same way that I think, Aisling, what did you say to me the other day? Something about BER rating with housing. Was impacting, the price. So to get the CFO on board, or he or she who holds the purse strings, there is actually some good incentives there, and hopefully we'll see more of that.
And again, to add to that, Ellie, I know even AIB Bank, they have an objective that by the end of the decade that they will offer green loans, but only offer them to companies that are on the sustainability journey. So, I mean, even all the banks are basically green loans, which they'll be in a position to offer them, 1%, 1.5% less. They can only give it to them if companies show that they have got that started on this journey, if not by then have got certified on this journey. So so there will be a lot of incentives, there's no question about it, and reasons to get certified. Yeah,
so whether it's attracting talent or investment opportunities, or the financial benefit, it all sounds to me certainly like there's so much there, there's so much advantage there for businesses. And we've got quite a lot of questions that I think you've actually already covered about, where do we get the resources? How do we find out? So Ed, would it be safe to say that that people could get onto the Green Tech HQ to find out if they're interested in training.
Yeah. And Ellie, I'm very happy that anyone calls us or connects with us and send us in an email on Green Tech HQ. And if you're in a part of the country, or if we can't, I can signpost you to relevant places.
Yeah.
Whether it's grants that are available or programs that are available. And if we can help you with our own ESG training, we will. If we can help you with a platform to help you get started, we will. But if not, we'll happily signpost you in the right direction.
That's great, Ed. And Aisling, if I can come to yourself. So Sarah Healy, who I know very well, is a very well-known, well-respected DEI or DEIB, I think is the terminology, consultant. She has a question saying, how does DEI show up beyond gender balance in B Corp? So can you help us with that question?
So B Corp is really all around a systems change. So it's about moving our economic system from a shareholder model to a stakeholder model. And our current system has been predominantly built basically for a certain type of white man. If we bring it back to that basic, it's that simple. And so if you're from a historically marginalized group, which means that if you're a woman, you're a person of color, neurodiversity, etc., LGBTQ+, that is documented in the B Corp assessment, because it's about having different points of view and different views and different thinking into changing our current economic system. So that is covered within DE&I, is covered more so in a B Corp framework than other ESG frameworks. And it's woven through the different impact areas. So the B impact assessment is split into 5 impact areas, which are 5 stakeholders. So that's your environment. How are you impacting the environment? How are you impacting your local community? How are you impacting your customers? How are you impacting your workers? And how is your business governed? And DE&I predominantly sits in the community aspect of that, but it does weave all the way through the assessment because it's totally interlinked.
Okay, yeah. And I think that's what it's about. It's about interdependency rather than rather than it just being siloed. It's that. And actually, I was at a talent summit a few years ago, and there was a fantastic guy. I think he was from EY in Boston, and he didn't name the client, but it's obviously a big pharma client. And he gave an example of a particular type of medical product that their entire medical rep fleet were all, what did he say, middle-aged white men. And this particular product, I don't know what it was, but I take it was for something that only affected women, and actually specifically Black and Latino women. And yet they had no, and Black and Latino women as an overall probably wouldn't have the same academic achievements due to the opportunities not being there. But once they changed their selection criteria for candidates and brought these people of color, these women of color, into the sales went through the roof. So getting back to what we said a few minutes ago about once you show the CFO or whoever it is the financial benefits, suddenly DEI becomes a lot more than just a token rubber stamp exercise,
Absolutely.
Yeah. And a question from Sandra. Thank you, Sandra. When B Corp talks about impact business model, do you have any real examples of a model like this in a services company? So does it just have to be part of your core or does it have to be part of your core business, or just a part of it?
So this is a great question, Sandra. And Sandra obviously knows a little bit about B Corp. So basically, the B Impact Assessment is the framework. It's split into kind of 2. So you have operational points, and these are just best in class kind of questions or ESG framework questions. So they align with policy, like are you paying everyone the living wage? Like what's your diversity, equity, inclusion policy? They'll kind of be best in class standards that are in any ESG framework that are following the law. But what sets B Corp different to kind of most other ESG frameworks is something called impact business models. And what B Corp are saying is, if your business has been created to change the world, so if you look at like Ed's working with all these like green tech companies, right? The whole purpose of those businesses is to solve some of the world's pressing issues.
Okay.
Right. So if the whole purpose of your business is to change the whole economic system and solve some of the world's problems and make money while doing that, that's when the system changes. So B Corp are saying if you can prove that and have an impact business model, we're going to give you a whole load of extra points. So for example, carbon offsetting, you get some points on that, you get half a point. Do you know what I mean? If you have an offset. If you have an impact business model, this is where you start making really large amounts of points because it's all around the systems change. So an example of an impact business model, does anyone remember Tom's shoes? Do you remember Tom's shoes? Those like buy a pair, give a pair.
Mm-hmm.
So you buy a pair of shoes and then a child in Africa would also get a pair of shoes.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they were kind of like, it was about 2000, I can't remember, 2006, 2007, they really like took off and everyone was like into wearing these shoes. And the B Corp guys were like, that's incredible. So if every business did that, where they buy a pair, give a pair, the whole system would change. And they were like, collaboration is the new competition. We're going to kind of copy what they've done and standardize it and put it into the B Impact assessment. So that's called an impact business model now. It's called design to give. And basically, the more money you make, if you commit to giving a certain amount of your turnover or profits to something that you're, either links to your business, but it doesn't necessarily have to, a charitable giving process, you will start getting rewarded and you'll start getting a lot of more points on it. So for example, my business, we have an impact business model. It's called Design to Give. We commit to giving a percentage of our time and our profits to accelerating the Sustainable Development Goals. B Corp will reward us with points on that. So that's an example of an impact business model.
Okay. And we see that a lot with employers that allow X percent. It could be 5%, it could be 10% of the employee's time on charitable products or charitable projects. So that's popular with the customer and it's popular with the employee.
Absolutely. And also it really rewards like businesses that are doing it. Sometimes businesses will have these kind of great initiatives in place, but then it's not documented anywhere and you're not really rewarded for it. It's bringing it all together so you can say, actually, this is all the good stuff we've done. Do you know what I mean? And actually, like we're being rewarded for it instead of it kind of being lost over here. So often the finance guys like it as well because they're like, oh, now we can see it's been a value.
Yeah. And a question from Kitty. Thank you, Kitty. So she is joining as a job seeker. I'm wondering, is there a current database with a list of companies in Ireland who have B Corp certification, or I assume working certainly on that journey? Does anyone want to advise us? I mean, we could probably look it up online, but does anyone know a hack for that?
Yeah, so there's a B Corp directory. So the whole idea with B Corp is that you have to commit to transparency. So not only will you be able to go into the B Corp directory and see what B Corps are in Ireland or across the world, you'll also be able to look at their assessment and you'll be able to see how many points they have. So some people shop by how many points B Corps have or, apply for jobs by the highest rating B Corps. So they get quite particular on it. But yeah, you can go into the B Corp directory and look up Ireland and it will show you all of the 45 B Corps in Ireland.
And can I just ask a question from me? The offsetting piece. So at a recent event I was at, there was a lady from a big pharma company, and she was explaining who do have their B Corp certification. And she was explaining that because of the nature of what they do, she said, we can't be plastic free. We have to have lids that toddlers can't open for safety reasons. There's syringes, they have to be, there's all this kind of, restrictions that they have to adhere to. But what they did was they moved all their fleet to electric vehicles. And they had, I think it was, I don't know if carbon neutral, but certainly as close to, by putting solar panels in their factory. So am I right in thinking that you get sort of the points for that offsetting?
Do you want me to jump in there, Ed?
Yeah, go ahead, Aisling. But yes is the answer, but I'll let Aisling take that.
Yeah, with B Corp, I mean, every assessment is different. With B Corp, what they want to see is your reduction plan. So firstly, they want to see your stake in the ground. We're tracking and measuring, and then we have a plan to reduce as much as we can. And it's a journey. It's progress, not perfection. It's a journey. And then anything that you can't kind of get rid of, then you offset. What they don't want to see is businesses just doing whatever they want and offsetting.
Yeah, I think that it really is a change by degrees. It really is. You start and you work on what you can control, and what you can control, you have. There's every right for B Corp to expect that you try and control that. You try and move in the direction. There's obviously things that will be difficult, as you've just mentioned, Ellie, and in that case, you just work on what you can control. And the like of that company doing what they've done there, that's a perfect example of that. And it is a real, I love the idea, and you were at the event last weekend with Change by Degrees. And I think that's a nice way to look at this.
Yeah.
And for anyone looking in, just get started, just change by degrees, change what you can change. There will be low hanging fruit for any company that they can get started on. Let's get started with that. Let's not try and eat an elephant in one bite. And I think it's just really important. And I do think, even to just take an ESG, which it doesn't have the legal commitment that B Corp has,
Yeah.
but it's still a great place to start and just get started on the journey. I think for most people looking in here, their biggest problem is actually getting started.
I
And so
agree.
I'd love to see someone who, if you can't change it, or you can't change it easily, or you can't change it financially easily, what you can change, do it. It would be certainly my advice to get started.
Yeah, as Aisling said, progress, not perfection. At least
Yeah.
make the start, So finally, I'd like to ask you both about your final thoughts on B Corp and why it's important to take it so seriously.
Do you want me to
Ladies
kick off
first.
So basically, I mean, B Corp really is around changing the system. Do you know what I mean? And I think to Ed's point as well, like, you have to start. And we're in a kind of, some of the academics say we're in this kind of collective procrastination, right? Where we're been in a bit of anxiety. It all seems quite overwhelming. What do we do? And it's actions drive belief. So we need to start somewhere. And whether that's B Corp, whether that's an ESG framework that works for you, it's about starting to track and measure and move forward.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of B Corp because I believe in the systems change. I believe that we need to move our world from a shareholder model to a stakeholder model. I think we need to figure out how to make money by doing good for people and planet instead of exploiting them. I think it's about changing capitalism, and I think we can absolutely do that. And B Corp also believe that, and that is one way of doing it. So that's why I'm a fan of that framework, because you become part of this club where everyone supports each other and is really like helping you grow your business, but also do good for people and planet. So when you're involved, it's really good fun. So I'd encourage everyone to get involved, and happy to have a chat with anyone who wants to.
Oh, thank you, Aisling. Ed, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, and I look at, I've been involved in business for 40 years and taken the idea that Aisling said, where it was about profitability without major regard, certainly little or no regard to the planet, and less regard to the people that you had working in it. And I must say, having been in business and have moved over to this way of thinking, I've never enjoyed anything as much. It's actually so much nicer to be involved, so much nicer to be involved that you take into account at all times what you're doing to the environment, what you're doing socially, what you're doing for your community. And it's amazing, since we set up our Green Tech HQ, one of the first things we did is actually used our community as effectively a pilot site for implementing a number of practices. And we got so much quick buy-in from the community, and we're getting so much quick buy-in from employees. It's actually a fun place to be at the moment. And I think B Corp and ESG, its time has come. And we know what's happening to the earth, and therefore I think it's lovely to get involved in making a difference and trying to change things, trying to not only take a leadership position yourself, but bring your employees with you, bring your customers with you, bring your community with you, and whatever. It's just a perfect timing. And I just think for people who are thinking get involved and not sure whether to get involved, I'd say jump in now, get started, and use this as a differentiator for your business for the next couple of years. Because despite the fact that we're very positive about here, people are slow and to get started and get in. So I think if you're one of the people who are looking in, I'd say take a leadership position, do it on behalf. You will get good employees running in behind you. You'll get investors. You'll get bankers. The banks, for instance, are looking for success stories at the moment. They are crying out for success stories. So I think you'll get a lot of buy-in for the stakeholders. So I think it's a great time to get started.
Yeah, and you see it on Dragon's Den. I think it's Deborah Meaden on BBC Dragon's Den. Every week, she makes a point of saying, to whoever is presenting, I'm only investing in companies that are having a positive impact on the planet, and that's her. So it is definitely something that whether it's investment or whether it's bank or whether it's future talent, future employees, it's definitely part of a lot of people's selection criteria, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is.
It is indeed. Well, I just want to thank you. I think every other question we have, you've probably covered.
There was a good statement from Rita as well, which I quite liked, which is around to circle back to the statement of bringing people of colour that proven to boost sales. It's an important point. However, irrespective of the result, women of colour, especially those who are Indigenous, should be involved in every element of sustainability.
Yeah.
So many sustainability practices are adapted from Indigenous practices, e.g. the circular economy. And I just wanted to build on that and say I absolutely agree. So I go to the world leading UN conferences, and often when you're at COP26, COP27, COP28, the big UN conferences, they have the Indigenous tribe leaders who come in and speak. And these are the kind of last gatekeepers of the lands, really. And so much of what we're learning, like the circular economy, which is being implemented in through EU guidance now, has come from these Indigenous practices, which is about, going back to the land and looking after nature. So I think it's a really, really good point.
Yeah, it is. Thank you, Rita. Well, I just wanted to thank you both so much for coming along and sharing your insights. And everyone who did register will get various links and templates to use. And of course, you're both very visible online. So if anybody wants to get in touch with either Ash or Ed and start a conversation, start their own B Corp journey. But thank you so much, and let's hope that we've been able to inform and educate people who are curious and who do see the value in this.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much, guys.
Very much, Kelly.
Okay. Have a great day. Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye. Bye. Bye.